How was last night? Was it fun? Right? Patrick Bet David, Glenn Beck, Charlie Kirk. Doesn't get better any better than that. And so that was a great way to start off this year's AmFest in 2023. This is our third year as a group, as Run Gen Z, being here at this conference. It's a phenomenal conference. I got to help, thank Charlie Kirk and Tyler Boyer for inviting us back to speak here at this breakout session today. But what's more important about today than yesterday, or will be tomorrow or Tuesday, is today is the Turning Point Action Day. And so it's not Turning Point USA, it's Turning Point Action, which means that we are going to go into action today. We're going to talk about how you guys can actually make a real difference, right? Yesterday, Monday, Tuesday is about hyping you guys up, talking about, the struggles that we're in right now as a country, right? But today is about how do we actually go out and make things better? How do we go actually out and be able to be people of action and go out and run for office, knock on doors, join campaigns. And so I'm incredibly proud to be here today to speak to you guys about that. So our session is obviously Demand Your Seat at a Table. My name is Joe Mitchell, and I'm the founder of this group up here called Run Gen Z. And Run Gen Z, we have a mission to empower, recruit, and mentor the next generation of conservative leaders across this country, which is you guys sitting here in the audience today. I'm somebody that served 2 terms in the Iowa State House. I was the youngest ever elected legislator in Iowa when I was elected at the age of 21 back in 2018. And through my time there, I started this group called Run Gen Z because I said, we need more young people at the table, right? I did not want to hold that title as the youngest legislator forever, right? It was my responsibility to help pass that on to people like yourself. And so today, we are honored to be joined here with several members of this group, of our coalition. So Chris Lonsdale, a state representative from Missouri, and Michelle Gamboa, who is a city councilwoman in Longview, Texas, are with us. So give them a round of applause while they come up to the stage. So, the point of, again, today's panel, today's breakout session, is these guys are going to be talking about their experience running for office. And the whole time when they're talking, I want you guys to think about you guys being in their shoes next year, because we want you guys here. And the whole purpose of this is to encourage you guys and let you guys know that, wait, we're not special. We went out there and we worked really hard. We knocked on a lot of doors. We put the shoe leather in. But at the end of the day, you guys had the same ability to be able to do what we did and go out there, win elections, and make a difference in your community. And so the first question I have today, and Michelle, we'll start with you, is kind of just give your background about yourself and why you first decided to run for office.
Well, howdy. Okay, you're asleep. Hello. Is that better? Hello, all. Okay, there we go. Well, my name's Councilwoman Michelle Gamboa, and I am from Longview, Texas. A little bit about myself is I am not a native Texan. I actually was born in the Mexican city of Ciudad Juarez, and my family immigrated to Longview when I was 7 years old. But don't worry, I'm legal. But I decided to run for office. I worked for a lot of elected officials, and I was just really tired of people having talking points and inflammatory talking points and just saying things to get elected but not actually getting things done. That wasn't the case for all of them, but I saw that being a trend. And so for me, I was on boards and several commissions, but I thought, I want to do something else. So how can I make the most impactful difference? So I decided to run for office. And I decided to go local because I think locality matters. I think all the positions you can have are great. But I think that really, for me, I get to represent people that I grew up in Sunday school with, my teachers, my friends that I get to grow up with. So it's a different level of accountability, and I'm just really humbled to be there. And I'm also your Miss Southwest, so
Yeah, 100%. And Michelle is the youngest city councilwoman ever in Longview's history and the first Hispanic woman. So, again, breaking glass ceilings there.
And the first woman since 1963, so that tells you that you can do it too.
So, Chris, again, tell your story about why you initially ran for office and felt the urge to do so.
Yeah. So, all right. My name is State Representative Chris Lonsdale. Represent the 38th district out in Missouri, which is the city of Liberty and a little bit of Kansas City proper. why I decided to, really run for office or just get involved in politics was I was going to college 2014, 2018. The presidential election was happening. And also, if you know anything about Mizzou, where I went to school, they had kind of racial protests and everything. So it was a lot of unrest on campus. And it just kind of hit me in the face, and I was like, what do I think about all this? Kind of the liberal insanity on college campuses, and I was like, I need to get involved. President Trump, the Republican primary is crazy. I was like, I need to, really, fight for my country, fight for my community. So I started getting involved back in 2016 when I was in college. Just door knocking, just being on the campaign side, and that's what I really enjoyed. Just talking to people about their issues. And attending events, just talking to people, and ended up getting a math degree. I was totally like, I'm going to be involved in politics. I'm going to volunteer, but I will not make it a career. I don't have no intention of running. I'm just, I just want to be just the happy warrior, and door knock and help people get elected. And then, so I'm an Eagle Scout. My two younger brothers are Eagle Scouts from the Boy Scout troop in my community. I had some people from my Boy Scout troop reach out to me, and they're like, "You should run for office." And I was like, and I was 24 at the time, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, well, why not?" So I was living in Chicago. I moved back to Kansas City. I ran for county assessor, and if you don't know what a county assessor is, that's fine. I didn't when I decided to run for it. County assessor does property taxes, and with my math background, with my kind of data analytical background, they were like, well, you would be a good candidate. So I was like, oh, okay, sure. So I signed up in 2020. Pandemic happens, and as soon as the restrictions lift in Missouri, I started door knocking, and ended up getting a strong second out of 3 people. And instead of being discouraged because I lost my first race, I ran 2 years later for state representative and ended up winning. So yeah, that's kind of the brief story.
Well, first of all, I did not know you ran for county assessor at first. I mean, that's bold in itself, right? To want to be the tax collector for your county is pretty brave. So, but Chris, what I hear in your story is that you had persistence and decided to continue to run. Yeah. And I think that's important here too, because a lot of the elected officials in our coalition, they didn't win on their first time. And so that's important to know. And then I would like to know about, when I decided to run, I was 20 years old. I was going to Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa at the time. And my predecessor of 24 years decided to retire. So he'd been, he'd been serving longer than I'd been alive. And when he decided to retire, I kind of had this gut feeling, okay, is this my time to run or not? And I went around and I got counsel from some current and former state representatives that I trusted, and everyone was, fairly encouraging about me running, because they said, Joe, there's never any perfect time to run. Because if you don't run in college, then you're going to have a family, then you're going to have a business you started, you're going to have a career, and so at no point in your life is the perfect time to run. So I want you guys to remember that as well when we're speaking through these issues today, is that you guys can run at any time. Anybody in this room, no matter what's happening in your life, there's never going to be a perfect time, and that, wide awakening of this is my time to run. So be thinking about that, when these guys are talking. So,
hey, Joe, I'd like to add one thing, because, it really is never the right time, and you have to make it the right time. For myself, I was in a 3-way race. I was the only woman. My opponent was throwing all kinds of sling. I even had groups of men sit me down before and tell me that I should not run for office because I am unwed and have no children, so therefore I am unfit to run a city. And then the whole time that we even had debates, rather than focusing on what my plan was, my long-term plan for the city, they kept commenting on my shoes or my outfits or my hair or my lashes or anything that does not have to deal with government. And so I would really just like to encourage you to, if someone's not offering you a seat at the table, build that chair, drag it up to the table, and sit down and make a seat for yourself, because you'll never know if you don't try. And for me, I would have never been, thank you. I would have never been the first Hispanic person, period, to get elected. And I'm not a pander. It's not about that, but representation matters, I'm the first woman since 1963, and I'm the youngest person ever. And I'm also the only immigrant voted into public office in East Texas. And so that just tells you that people are hungry, and they want someone who loves America, whether they were inherently born here or not. I'm just as proud of being an American, and I wasn't born here. I love America, and I love being here, and that's why I want to work hard for my city. And if you have that burning passion, you can do it too. Don't let anybody discourage you.
Yeah, 100%. Round of applause for The one person that was discouraging was my predecessor, actually, when I sat down with him, because he told me, he said, you see, he had somebody else picked out, and he said, Joe, he said, you need a wife, and you need kids, and you need a family, and you need a career, and you have your whole life ahead of you, right? You don't need to run right now. And so, that's the kind of things you're going to hear from certain people. I will say, I think overall you should have, if you don't have encouraging people in your life, that's why we're here. That's why Run Gen Z is here, to make sure that you guys are encouraged. You're put in with a group that is going to give you a mentor to be able to help you through that race. But, let's talk about the challenges that you guys faced on your campaign when you first ran. And kind of what were the biggest hurdles that you faced? And did you think that your age was something that helped you or hurt you during that first campaign election cycle?
For me, I think that the hardest part was that I was running against a Harvard lawyer who was also Latino, and on paper he looked way better than me, and he made sure to tell everybody, and the other guy, poor guy, we just dismissed him altogether. He ran every year, always lost, and good for him, he should run, but at some point too, you need to learn what's a viable seat for you. And because not just a heart wins, data wins, and numbers win as well. So if you want to run for something, be smart, do your due diligence, and do a cost-benefit analysis so you can know that you can actually get in that. But for me, it was the consistent, I guess, smack talk to me, my family. I made a mistake in college, and so, which is now expunged. I'll tell you all about it, but it was just a stupid mistake as a kid. And rather than let me live it down, my opponent actually spread, illegally acquired my picture and sent it to every single household. But guess what? I owned up to it. I said, you know what? I was a kid, I made a mistake, but you know what? I'm here now, and I'm a different person, and that's actually the reason I decided to run for office and do these things, is because when I was an idiot, I was doing stuff that I shouldn't be because I didn't value myself, and that's not how you should be in life. And also, it was just, that opponent, he really was just always mudslinging me on the radio, on TV ads, all that stuff. So at some point, I had to get smart, too, and come at him. So I outworked him on the ground. He just talked and talked and talked and flapped his gums, but I actually went out there and knocked on 3,222 doors out of the 5,000 households in my district. I did send a mailer to every household. I tried to personally call everybody. And more than that, I think that people really liked, in regards to age. At first, I perceived that to be something that people would be against, but actually because I was willing to let people know that I didn't know everything, I think that's what really helped me win, because my opponent's like, I'm a Harvard lawyer, and I'm so smart, and I'm the greatest man that's ever existed, and I could be living anywhere, but I chose to live in the pitiful town of Longview, Texas, and for me, it was like, I freaking love Longview, I want to make it better, I do not know everything, but I am a hard worker, and I will do the research, and I will figure it out for you. And that's what people want to hear. They don't want you thank you so much. They don't want you to say oh, I know everything. People hate that. People don't like a smart butt. So
there was a dozen things I want to hit on there, but Chris, we're gonna go to you real quick. Biggest hurdles you faced, and your age, was it a positive or negative in your race?
I really think my age was a positive. Some of my most, devout and hardest working campaign volunteers were older people, because they were just sick and tired of, generally older people or just retirees running for office. I ran against a 54-year-old police officer in my Republican primary, and I got a lot of flack because they're like, you can't beat a police officer in the Republican primary in the age of, Blue Lives Matter and everything like that. They're going to smear you as anti-police. Just for running against a police officer. And I was like, well, you know what? I was like, so my district is 85% the city of Liberty, which is a suburb of Kansas City, and then 15% Kansas City proper. And him being a Kansas City police officer, he lived in the Kansas City portion. And I was just so livid that I was just like, the suburbs are always getting railroaded by Kansas City, big blue city in Missouri. I was just like, this district was drawn for a suburban guy, someone who doesn't live in Kansas City. So it was like, I'm not going to sit there and watch, a Kansas City cop represent a district that is majority the suburbs, majority not Kansas City. So I was like, I told a lot of people, because there was a lot of threats made. There were a lot of people that were like, we're going to ruin your reputation. We're going to drive you out of town. And I was just like, okay, fine. I want to represent my community. I think that this district deserves someone from our community in Liberty, not Kansas City. I had a lot of, donors, people that were politically connected that veiled threats, innuendos when I was campaigning. But my age, I think, was totally an asset. When I was door knocking, when people loved it, and really, I think a lot of the retirees, a lot of the older folks were some of my biggest supporters. That were like, we just love to see young people, young Republicans get involved in the political process.
Yeah. So. And I think we all experienced the same thing when we went door knocking. The first thing I got was, because I couldn't grow a beard like Chris, and I was, have a baby face, was, are you old enough to run for office, right? But with some humility, when you say, just barely, but here is my campaign platform, people want to see new blood, and they want to see a new face, and they're tired of seeing, sorry to the boomers in this room, a bunch of boomers that are representing in their legislature or on the city council or whatever else. And, we're not trying to have a disproportionate amount of Gen Zers, millennials that are representing on these things. We just want a fair shake and representation that we don't have, right now. But one of the things I want to go back to that I think is really important, that I think gets overlooked a lot, even by myself, but I hear a lot from folks like in this crowd, from young people, is they don't want to run because they are afraid of their social media, right? They're afraid because they've been in college, right? And they've had Snapchat videos taken of them at parties and at bars and doing stupid stuff. I am here to say that if, I didn't get doxxed essentially from doing any of those things, you guys probably won't either. And even if you do, it's going to be from my Nate, small BLM type of, malicious group that will do that. So I want you to talk, Michelle and Chris, if you have any experience with that, of like getting over that fear of being like, okay, what will my college friends say that are probably liberal? What will somebody try to, expose some Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook photo of me from whatever time it was? Also, piece of advice, I would say, before I ran, I deleted my Facebook, my Instagram, my Snapchat, everything, my Twitter, because I looked at some of the stuff I'd, written in 2012 when I was a sophomore in high school, and would not be politically correct now, right? And I deleted it before I even told a single soul. I didn't tell a single one of my college buddies before I did that. So anyways, just want you guys to talk about that real quick, about social media, the anxiety that people may have here as young people specifically that are running and are thinking about those sort of things. Because we've seen it. We've seen the cancel culture for the last 4 or 5 years and what they can, the toll it can take on people. So Michelle, if you want to talk about that real quick.
So my biggest fear actually came true, which is why I even told you, because at this point, everything lives on the internet. So for me, I always tried to not post dumb, quote-unquote, things on the internet, so that wasn't a huge struggle for me. I did delete some of, the silly statuses I made when I was younger. But for me, my biggest fear did come true, and I had to face it, which was my mugshot being out there for the entire world to see. But I think for me is I owned up to it. I think that oftentimes that you can delete, you can do all these things, but I think people appreciate honesty. They appreciate you being real and, owning up to your mistakes, because I think that's going to speak on your character and on how you'll legislate. And so for me, it was facing that fear, owning up to it. Even now, it's expunged. I don't even have to talk about it. I don't even have to mention it. I could lie all day long and be like, I've never done anything wrong. And it wasn't even that big of an offense, but it was like a traffic ticket, essentially, right? But at the same time, it's that I own up to those things because it makes me a real person, it makes me relatable, and it makes people know that no matter what mistake you've made, no matter what you've done, you can come back from it, you can represent, and you will make a difference. But it's your willingness to try, your willingness to learn, and the ability to make mistakes, learn from them, and also, get to know other people on a deeper level.
Chris, anything to add to that?
Well, I'll just say this: for most state houses, local office, it's like you are not dealing with political geniuses. So it's like there's a lot of people, like your opponents, especially if you choose to run, a lot of times they won't even necessarily find it, or they won't know how to weaponize it in such a degree to actually take you out. Like
Mine's the rare case, but it will happen.
Yeah.
So they're speaking on their butt. The rare case will happen, just letting you know.
But so I deleted my social media, I think shortly after graduating college in 2018, because I kind of knew that I was like, I just thought about this. I deleted it for trying to get a job, but I always kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, I might run, I might be politically involved. So I deleted my social media, and I was fortunate. I didn't have anything from college. I didn't have anything kind of pop up. But also, like, people, I think a lot of young people get very paranoid about, oh, my social media, if it gets leaked. And it's like, what's going to be more impactful is you door knocking, you talking to the voters directly than, some hit piece in a small race saying, oh, look at this one, the out of context tweet. Look at this one Facebook post. A lot of times, Someone told me this early on in my campaign. He's like, how to get a attack to stick? It's money and repetition. So if they're not going to dedicate a lot of money, like saying how terrible you are, a lot of times it's not going to stick, or like the people that are voting aren't even going to hear about it. So even if you do have a past, something in your background that isn't great, a lot of times people won't really hear about it. Or like if you have a good explanation, people are forgiving, especially, post-Trump, and seeing this all the actual griminess of politics. There are bad people in politics that actually have seriously criminal backgrounds. And if you have a bad tweet, you have a bad Facebook, or you said something that you shouldn't have said, that's small ball compared to what some of these congressmen, some of these senators are getting away with. So, I would say, don't be discouraged just because, someone has, like an out of context, social media post.
Or you said something like, even if somebody does spend all that money to attack you and stuff, if people know your character, it won't stick. Like, my opponent raised 4 times as much money as I did, and I still beat him by 60% because, you know what? Like, people like real people. People are tired of politicians. People don't want to be like, oh, I'm higher than thou, let them eat cake. People are tired of all that stuff,
No, 100%. And for me, what it always came back to, too, and when I'm, trying to get you guys to run for office, because I'm not saying it's easy, is that there's people that have literally laid down their life for this country. And if we can't put our name on the ballot, then we're cowards. And, when I was around door knocking, my first election in my primary, it was April of 2018, and I was in a town called New London. It was a town of 1,000 people in my district. And I was knocking on this door, and this older lady came to the door, was probably in her 80s, and talked to her, and she said, hey, I think my husband would love to meet you. And so come to my living room, which, by the way, if you're door knocking, normally you don't want to go into everyone's living room because, A, it could not be safe, but B, you don't want to spend 45 minutes at a door because that's not, efficient or effective. But anyway, so I went to this living room. Glad I did, because I went in there, and I sat on the couch. There was an older gentleman in the recliner in his 90s. And we sat there for 45 minutes talking, and he told me, he said, Joe, I'm more conservative than Rush Limbaugh. And I said, that's really conservative. And he said, are you conservative or Republican? And I said, well, I think I'm both, But, I sat there, and I listened to his life story. He had served in World War II. I was in Iwo Jima, and then he came back and served as a pastor for 40 years. And he had terminal cancer. And he told me, he said, I'm not going to make it, past July. And he said, you will be the last vote I ever take. And the first vote he ever took was for FDR, right? And so, what happened was, I was obviously touched by that. Came back during the general. He had passed away in July. It was, in fact, the last vote he'd ever taken. But when I think about people like him and the stories he had and the friends that he lost overseas, literally fighting for our freedom, and we sit here today and we're afraid because we might have a bad TikTok out there or Snapchat or Instagram post. We have to get over that because we're in a legitimate fight for this country. And so that's why we got to saddle up. We got to put our big boy pants on and go out there and fight these people because they're crazy, because we're fighting against evil people and crazy people. And so, again, I just tell you guys that to say that we have to remind ourselves that there's people in generations before us that have literally kept us free, kept us to be able to do things like this. And so the least we can do is go out there, put our name on a ballot, and fight for what they did. So, on a lighter note, and something that I also think gets, looked over is Michelle and Chris, because Michelle, you were on, the city council, Chris for state rep. How did you guys initially file for office? Because I think that's probably, a basic question that a lot of people here probably don't know. Okay, how do I go out and actually get my name on that ballot? So, what was the process that you went through for Longview City Council, Michelle?
Well, first I Googled it. And so after I Googled it and I saw that I had to fill out a form and go turn it into the city hall, that's what I did. And I paid my filing fee. You can collect signatures or you can get a filing fee. I worked for enough politicians to know how long it takes to get those signatures. And so I chose to have some buy-in as well so people would see that I'm serious about the position I'm taking. And then after that, you appoint a treasurer. And so I appointed my treasurer, Susan, and that's just kind of the basic process of what I did to file for office. So it's really easier than you think. But I was shaking like I am right now the whole way up to City Hall, and I was like, here you go.
Yeah, Chris?
So my first race for county assessor in 2020, you just went to the county election board. You paid, I think it was $50 to get on the ballot, and they look at your ID and they're like, they run it through the system. Okay, you live in the county, you're a registered voter, because I believe the requirement was you had to be a registered voter for a year. So they look that up, and then that's it. Then you're on the ballot. Your state representative in 2022, you have to go to the state capitol. Usually there's like a big party beforehand. It's a pre-filing party. So all the elected officials in the state of Missouri host these fundraisers, parties. So you get to go to that, and then the next day, filing opens at 8 a.m. It's a random lottery. So you go to the Secretary of State's office, you show your ID, show that you're a registered voter, show that you actually live in the district, and then you get a what is it? It's like a bingo ball.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So there's a massive tub, and it's 1 through 1,000, and every single state office candidate picks a ball, and that is your determination on the ballot, whether you're first place or you're second place if you have your primary. So so that the lower the ball number, the better it is. So, it's kind of at the state level, it's kind of this whole big old fancy thing, but it's not that big of a deal. You just kind of show up.
I totally forgot about that because for like in Longview, no one had ever opposed an incumbent. I also kind of made history that way because I tagged the word conservative on my yard signs, and I also challenged someone. Ooh, that's never been done. So I challenged someone. So we did the draw. They never had to do the draw in Longview. So as a whole, everyone was up in arms, what do we do? So they did hot air balloons because we're the hot air balloon city. So we had mini hot air balloons, and we got to pick a hot air balloon. I picked mine, and I was number 2 on the ballot, but number 1 in your heart.
You guys have a hell of a lot different system than we do. I'll tell you that. And more exciting, it sounds like. So in Iowa, to get on the ballot, you either had to get 100 signatures for state rep. You can't pay just $50. You have to get 100 signatures. That's what you have to do. And so, I remember when I was going to file, I went back home, and I didn't know, again, how to utilize, Advantage or Campaign Sidekick or any of these apps, the data apps, or even get the registered voter list from the Secretary of State. So I just went back and went to my hometown and went to my teacher's stores and my old neighbor's stores and asked people to sign the petition for me and to get me on the ballot. But that's why we are here as an organization, Run Gen Z, to be able to help you guys, get through these, kind of what you may think is simple. Some people might think it's complicated, but it can be overwhelming at times. So again, Run Gen Z as an organization, we are here to help you guys with these first initial steps and to pair you up with a mentor like Chris or Michelle to be able to help you through that process. Because again, when you're first running as a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old or 26-year-old, a lot of times you don't know what is the first step to do, and that's why we're here as an organization to help you with that, and also to help you figure out what is a viable open seat to run for in your district. Is that school board? Is that city council? Is that a state legislative seat? And so again, and I know we're handing around a clip sheet with you guys put your information on there. We will contact you guys after today's session, because we want you guys to apply. We want you guys to apply to run for office. And so, again, that's why
Can
we're
I
here.
give you a shout out on why I love this organization so much? And I don't get paid for this. I just really love it. Is that really, like, you're always gonna have questions even after you file. Like, sometimes I feel like a little thunderbolt because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just like zapping everywhere. But there's some things that I don't understand, and because of the Open Records Act, you can't really like speak to your fellow councilmen. So sometimes it's nice calling someone random from a different state and being like, and what do you do? Like, how do you analyze a budget, or what is the first step that you look at? Because when you get a budget, it's not a one pager. Let me tell you, it's like huge. And then I'm like, what is this? And then you ask for the backup to the budget, and you're like, this doesn't even fit in my car. Like, how am I going to read this? And you have to read it as a PDF. And so Run Gen Z for me has provided me with lots of friends and mentors that I can call, like Tara Campbell, who's now the mayor of Yorba Linda, California. I get to call her Joel Castro, and a lot of these people when I have questions about procedure or policy. And what's really great is that they not only mentor me, but equip me with the tools that I need to be successful as well. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for starting this, and thank you to Mason back there, the El Jefe way back yonder, making sure everything goes good. So thank y'all for starting this.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we're going to move to questions from the audience for the last 15 minutes. So please raise your hand if you guys have questions for these guys up here. Right here in the back.
Hey, I had a quick question. So, did all y'all have like jobs before you started running for office? So, like currently, like I'm a mining engineer, I work for a big corporation, but have been very politically inclined and thought about running for office. Grew up here in Arizona and hate to see the way the state's going. But there's always that risk or that worry of backlash, right? We work for a liberal organization. Did you guys have jobs before you ran for office, and how did you deal with that?
I'm very fortunate that I run my family's industrial, commercial, and residential roofing company. So that's what I do full time. I'm also on various boards and commissions, and I compete in pageants. So I would just tell you that don't be discouraged by time or a job. God is going to place you in the place that you need to be. So I would just encourage you to listen to his voice first, listen to what you want to do, and take those steps. I think that the job that you're supposed to be in and the place you're supposed to be in life will naturally work out and be the way that it's supposed to. So don't let hypotheticals discourage you from pursuing a life of service that could help impact many.
So I have kind of an interesting story in regards to that. So I was working as a data engineer for a software company during my campaign, and I did database programming work for them, and they were like, oh, if you win, you can do it remotely, no problem. And I think they were thinking that I wasn't going to win. So, and then when I won, about a month later, I got laid off. So that's a very real thing, that if you decide to run for office, your company could retaliate, or and they can give a litany of reasons. It could be, you may never know it's because of your politics or anything like that, but a lot of times, our politics is not in favor with a lot of corporate boards nowadays. So as of right now, the state legislature is part-time. It's January through mid-May. So I sell cars with my dad. So, I've in between jobs, I've always sold cars. So that's what I do. So I always tell people, I was just like, I'm a car salesman and a politician. So it's like, I don't know which one's worse, but but yeah.
And what I would add to that is, there's a lot of elected offices that aren't full-time, or that aren't even like, the state legislature by and large is considered not full-time, but it is kind of full-time. But like if you're on
The city council is full-time. Let me tell you about them potholes, okay?
Okay.
And even if you run your family's company, be prepared that people will mudsling your poor family's name. And like for my dad, being an immigrant who's worked his whole life, also talk to your family, because my poor dad, like, God bless him, Ricardo, you're the best, because he literally made sure that he took the brunt of it with me, because people would leave us 1-star reviews and be like, you love Donald Trump, we hate you.
So well, Michelle is right. If you get into elected office, it's going to turn into just having several full-time jobs. But there is elected offices that you can get into that you're living at home, you're going to the city council meetings in your hometown, several times a month, school board, that sort of thing. So we can talk to you about that as well and kind of tailor what your schedule is to what may be the best office to run for. And the other thing I would say too is the network, specifically as young people, that you make when you run for office. There's a lot of conservative business owners out there, and they would love to hire you. So when you're out there and you're networking, you're at the Chamber of Commerce stuff or Rotary or whatever that may be, you're gonna make a lot of connections and a lot of professional connections. And again, I'm not saying that you won't get laid off, but I am saying that there's a lot of opportunities out there too with the network that you do make with great people. Other hands up over here.
Hi, so I'm curious, how important is fundraising, and what were some of your strategies to help do that?
So my first race, county local office, tends not to attract a ton of money. So I raised about $12,000 my first race, and the guy who ended up winning raised just slightly more. I want to say like $12,500, and that was largely, I think I put in $2,000 of my own money. And then it was like college buddies, it was a few business owners, and then I lost that race. And then in 2022, at the state level, a lot more, as Joe knows, there's a lot more money that flows in because you're deciding, state issues, and you deal with a massive budget. So my race in 2022, I raised $52,000 personally. And then I had a group spend $49,000 on door knockers. So it ended up, being over 100,000 to win my district. But yeah, so most of my fundraising was actually car sales connections. Fun fact, car dealerships, very conservative. I want to say they donate, it's like 90-10. To Republicans. So, and usually they're very involved with the community. So, if you decide to run for office, hit up your local car dealership because they will probably cut a check for you. They're flush with cash. But yeah, most of it was my dad's connections, my family connections, and, my Boy Scout troop that I was involved with as a kid was actually very politically connected. So, business owners, city councilmen, and that's really just my communal connections is how I was able to raise the money.
Well, and I would say it really depends, right? It depends on what office you're in for, what district you're running in. Normally, a seat like Chris's, where he's in the suburbs, can be more competitive. My seat in very rural southeast Iowa was $10,000 for my primary, and it was a four-way primary. But that dollar amount's very cheap for a state house race. But it just really depends where you're at. For a school board race or a city council race, depending on what town you're in. Could be a couple $1,000s. And so kind of to answer also, how you can raise some of that money, a friends and family letter is great to start with. And so that's something that we can help with at Run Gen Z is kind of putting together that first initial letter that you're going to send out to that list you used for your wedding or for your graduation or whatever that may be, to folks to ask for that, $250,000, $500,000 check to start kind of funding your campaign.
And don't forget to follow up on those letters because you don't get the money if you don't follow up. But also, another unheard of for me in my hometown is I had to raise over $30,000 for a city council seat because my opponent threw over $70,000 in the race to try to obliterate my spirit, soul, and reputation, but he was unsuccessful. And so I would just encourage you to send those letters, follow up. For me, it was a lot of those connections. I think that people appreciate you being involved as well. So don't forget that any prior planning prevents poor performance, right? So you should have your long-term, short-term, and mid-term plans of what you want to do. And don't tell them to anyone, Chris. Don't tell anyone your plans, but because they may change. God may change your life and you don't know. But take the steps in being involved locally, because I think for me what helped me raise money was once people saw that this guy was trying to take me out, I don't even know what happened. I feel like I blacked out. The cavalry came in. Somehow I raised $30,000. People were like, you got to vote for Michelle. She's a freedom fighter. People were running ads for me that I had no idea who they were, like on the radio, like, Michelle Gamboa, conservative businesswoman. You must elect her. And I was like, thank you, random group that I have no idea who you are. Because I think when people see your passion and your fire, they're going to come and rescue you if they see that you're on an island by yourself.
Okay, two more quick questions. Right down here, first row.
Hi, first of all, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming up here. I'm actually running for Massachusetts State Committee Woman
Woo!
in my district.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm 19. I'm the youngest one to ever run for a state committee woman. But I am running against the incumbent that is in her late 60s, has a family, her PhD, and she's definitely using that against me. So I was just kind of wondering what you think my strategy should be to beat her.
Your story sounds a lot like mine, and so what my strategy was letting people know that I was willing to learn, willing to work, and willing to do the research. Because when people act like they're smarter, then people are going to assume that that's how they're going to treat them as well. And people don't want to come up to someone that believes that they know everything. And like, what if you have an issue and you're trying to bring it to your public servant, your elected official, but they're so unwilling to listen and they dismiss you because I know everything. No one likes that. But you're like, hey, she may have all these accolades, but let me tell you about how I'm gonna work so hard for you every single day, and I'm gonna be present, and I'm gonna be at the table, and this is how I'm going to deliver for you as a state committee. And then have your priorities. Clearly list them out, and anytime people try to throw at her, say, hey, I don't speak ill of others, is what I would say about him whenever he trash talked me, but let me tell you why I'm going to demolish this race, and why I'm gonna represent you in the best way possible. So just always go back to that.
So,
Go ahead.
all right, I'll just say this. Running against an incumbent has some advantages because now they have a record. So whatever record that is, if they've done something that is, can be attacked.
If they voted for Rana.
Yeah,
That's a
true.
record.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just look at it like that, and people appreciate genuineness. So you go door knock, and I want to say state central committee, probably no one door knocks or actually runs a real campaign. So if you go out there and talk to people, first explain to them what it even is, because most people probably don't even know what it is. But like you can win it just by that, is going out there and actually running a real campaign and door knocking and talking to people.
Hard work always wins.
Thank you. Hi, thank you very much for being here. I can relate to this lady. I've been in America for 30 years. I'm a naturalized American citizen. Thank you very much. I don't take it for granted. I've been in these conferences and brought my kids. This is amazing, and America has more opportunities for women and minorities than any other place in the whole world. Bless you. My question is this. I'm from Las Cruces, New Mexico. How do you fight or get over the discouragement of the voting fraud? Where we are is terrible. Some conservatives do amazing campaigns, knock 1 million doors, people love them, and they lose bad. And people that don't even campaign win. How
That's a joke.
So are you talking about Mexico or here? Oh, New Mexico. Sorry about that.
Get it together, Joe.
Well, New Mexico is, it's not very good either. So, luckily in Iowa, we have a Republican state legislature and have passed some of the strongest election integrity bills in the country. In New Mexico, you guys have an extremely blue state, and so it's one of those things where you have to work 10 times as hard to win that state legislative seat, to win that governor's race. Obviously, you guys had Governor Martinez just a few years ago. So I think it's one of those things of making sure that you have poll watchers, making sure that you're organized, making sure that you guys are playing by the rules of the state. If they have ballot harvesting that's legal, which I think it is, then you have to utilize those rules of the game because the Democrats are doing that. So I think it's have to play by their rules, unfortunately, until you get into power, and then you can eventually pass those election integrity bills. Okay, we are out of time, but it's good to see each and every one of you guys here. Thank you for coming out. Give these guys a big round of applause. We'll be here afterwards. You guys want to speak?
And don't forget to run for office.